Hey, welcome everybody. This is Dana with CoachDanaInspires.com, and I am excited to have you all here today with business inspiration. And we have our guest today is Blaine Little from Momentum Seminars, and we are grateful to have Blaine here today. And we're going to be talking about a lot of really fun things and how to avoid some mistakes that are really common to folks who are either managing in a company or entrepreneurs or business owners who have to manage people. So welcome, Blaine Little of Momentum Seminars. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Dana. Thank you so much for having me. And I've been looking forward to this for weeks.
I
So
know
this will
this
be
is gonna
good.
be fun. Yeah, thank you so much. Blaine, it's kind of weird. You have been training people for over 20 years. Is that true?
Yeah, that's how I got my start. Long story short, when I got into real estate a little over 20 years ago, I had the world's worst broker. And I say that broker is terrible because whenever you went into that person's office and you asked a question, the broker would try to belittle you for even asking the question. 20 years
Oh.
later, now that I have my broker's license, I realize that broker didn't know the answer. So
Uh-huh.
I learned a lot of things very quick on my own. Actually, that's not true. I had three very good mentors in real estate, but I started to just observe and watch, and I learned a lot of different things. And I said, I wish some of the more rookie agents would learn from the mistakes that I've made. So I started training, and I've got about 7 or 8 state approved training
Yeah.
classes that I do for continuing education. And probably 7, 8 years ago, people said, why are you only doing real estate? You need to branch out. And so I've been on the road. I've gone across the country. In 2017, I did almost 100 all-day seminars,
Whoa.
and it was awesome. And it was one of those things. I love training, Dana.
Yeah.
I would go out on the road and I would train for 4 or 5 days. I'd come home Friday night and I'm like, oh, I am so beat. By Sunday afternoon, I'm ready to go again. I gotta go.
Yeah.
Gotta go.
Yeah. I get so much energy from the people. I just love their energy and seeing them learn it and get it. So yeah, I absolutely I know where you're coming from with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Those
So
light bulb moments, man. You can't. I mean, that's a high
oh
for me.
yeah, it is. Yeah. And so right now we can't go do those things right now unless they're very small meetings and if someone wants to get on an airplane and go through an airport. So speaking of COVID-19, what do you see the business climate doing? We've gone through the honeymoon stage, I call it, of COVID, of saying it'll be done in 2 or 3 months. Clearly, that's not true. So now we're kind of moving forward and sort of learning our new reality of what life may be for in the future. So how do you see us moving forward?
Well, it's tough. I think if you ask any school teacher, they'll tell you that you have to be flexible, and that's
Yes.
absolutely the case because for years they've had one model of what to do, and now they're just like completely having to pivot. And that's a good word for the 21st century, pivot.
Yes.
Um, so Zoom and online meetings, that's not going away, and
Yep.
I'm not qualified enough to give good stock tips, but I would say that if you own a lot of stock in airlines, sell, because the business class is not going to be what it once was. That's not saying face to face is going away. It's not, but there will be for the more routine type things, you can really do a lot of that on Zoom. Someone asked me about doing a retreat, and they wanted to do a virtual retreat. I said, "You understand the purpose of a retreat, right? It's not a lecture. It's kumbaya, let's roast marshmallows and all that. So no, you can't do a retreat online.
Yeah.
It kind of defeats the purpose. But you can still learn a lot. You can engage.
Hmm.
So online meetings is not going to go away, but I think we'll see more and more hybrids, uh,
Yeah.
as schools have had to do.
Yeah.
In the training for real estate agents, I've done a number of online CE, and up until I think February or March, our state did not even recognize continuing education online.
Right.
And so to their credit, they pivoted and they said, nope, we got to do something. And
Right.
so I've done a lot of that. But 2 weeks ago, Dana, I taught a real estate course, and we dipped our toe in the water, and it was 40 people in a room. There was spacing.
Mm-hmm.
It was wonderful. Oh my God, I so needed that. I mean, it was like I'm like a heroin addict out in the desert. I gotta have that.
I know. Yeah, it's getting that people fix. I'm with you. Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So as entrepreneurs, as managers, as people who are looking to possibly hire people, so you're going to be managing those people. You might be a small business owner, and you might be it until you start hiring people because you're doing so well. So what can we do right now, do you think, that we could really start moving forward and doing?
Well, if you're wanting to bring people onto your team, because I think that's kind of where you're going, yes, there is Fiverr that you can do a lot of things online, but also there's wonderful stateside virtual assistants. I mean, there's several of them. Takesha is a friend of mine. She's a lady here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, where I live, and she has several real estate clients for the realtors who do not want to fill out that paperwork, but she has all the forms in her office, and she can do everything remotely and engage with the clients as needed. And that's one way that you can do it. But people are not going to be as averse as meeting online a potential prospect, a customer.
Right.
And so if you can set up some of those Zoom calls just to prospect, how much time is that saving, and gas money does that save you
Yeah.
and your prospective customer? It's amazing.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I think a virtual assistant has been a lifesaver. Absolutely a lifesaver. And I know people who, once they get an assistant, how did I even live without this person? So, and a virtual assistant can break you too. If you pick a poor one, if you pick one that's a good friend of yours, and they're really not, so you have to really make a good choice. That's one thing
Yeah.
for sure. So what is, so we're talking about people who may be thinking about hiring people, maybe just started uh, managing people as a business owner, or as a working in a company. So what's the most challenging thing about being new at that?
Well, for a lot of people, it's what Peter Drucker used to call knowledge workers, and I call them technicians. So it's people who were very good at what they did before. And this does apply to you being promoted within a corporation, but it also applies to me because, I've been hired by corporations to go out and do the training, and now I do everything myself. And, sometimes I want to fire myself because maybe I'm not doing it right, or, but then again, I have a jerk boss. So, but no, what was the question again?
What's the
No,
most challenging thing?
a big challenge is really to stop doing the work. And if you're going to bring other people on, to teach them well how to do it, and then leave them alone. Let them do it. And I've talked to people who step into this role, and I say, you're micromanaging your people. They have to learn. And then, no, Blaine. It's just that it's not that I'm a micromanager. It's that I did things a certain way when I was in that position, and now I want this individual to do it exactly the same way. Psst, you're a micromanager.
Yeah.
Stop. That's literally the definition of a micromanager. So let someone else put their personality into it. Now, obviously, if there's safety concerns or regulation, then it has to be done a particular way. But, if someone goes on a sales call, oh, I can't tell you how many times I have seen a rep step right into sales, and he or she is 10 times better than the sales manager. Why would you want to mold them into you? Let them go do their thing. And that's a big mistake that I've seen a lot of new managers make.
Right, right. And I think that's difficult. So if I so I'm a solopreneur. I'm the only person here. I do my thing. I make my appointments for my clients, and I bill, I get the money, I do all that stuff. And so hiring a virtual assistant, it would be very difficult, I think, if
Yeah,
you're that kind of person to hand that off.
it
And I
is.
think that's really good advice, is to, this is what I need, and then let them do it. Thank you.
Yep.
That's fabulous. I think you're right. And even for those who are managing teams, you got to let the team do what you're asking them to do.
Right.
Otherwise, why did you hire them? Yeah, I
Exactly.
like that. I like that. So, is that really the most destructive things a manager can do or an entrepreneur can do if they're hiring people?
Well, and the way my book came about was I
Mm,
had a keynote a couple 3 years ago, and I outlined the top 8 mistakes, as I see it, that new managers make. And I took that keynote because so many people said, "Oh God, this is exactly correct," because my boss does, number 3, number 5, number 6, and number 8. Or I've had people come up to me and say, "I wish I knew this when I was first starting out." So it's something that's written for newer managers, but there's also a lot of existing managers who also kind of have a blind side. They may not know they're micromanaging, and people are not going to learn if you don't let them make their mistakes. So that's what this comes out of. There's a number of things that we got to check
yeah.
our blind sides.
Right, absolutely. And so this is the book we're talking about: managerial mistakes, missteps, and misunderstanding. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And this little book has a lot of great information, and that even for the person who has one or two people. It's not, you don't have to have massive teams to make this a really informational and great content. Great
yeah.
content, absolutely. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for that.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, you're exactly right. And I make a distinction within the book that there's a difference between leadership, which is top tier, and management, which is more kind of in the middle, working with individuals.
Right, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Um, so since we are now in this delightful COVID environment and virtual environment, um, how can a boss really manage during this time on this virtual life, remote life we live right now?
Well, the last chapter in my book, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I'm talking about, because in one of those I talk about don't be a micromanager, but then I go the other way and I say don't be completely aloof either. And before I actually publish the book, it does come out in about a week and a half. We pushed it back a little bit to the 8th of October. I felt it was really important to add a section on how do you remain present when you're not? How do you manage people online? And so I outlined 4 different C's, and I'll cover those as fast or as slow as you want me to. But
Yeah, we're good.
basically, it's commitment, clarity, um, obviously communication, and connection. And what I mean by commitment is, things are not going to go right the first few times, as we all know. There's going to be IT problems. Maybe you need to talk to somebody because they're not supposed to be taking 2.5 hour lunch breaks. But commit to the process, and that's a huge thing, because if you just try it and then this doesn't work, you could be missing out. Clarity, because you're not there in person to really better articulate what is a priority. You may need to kind of really take time to reiterate it and simply say, these are the priorities. Here's number 1, number 2, number 3. This is my list of priorities. So be very clear,
Okay.
because your team can't easily run down the hall and say, hey, boss. Um,
Yeah.
Number 3 is connection. And a, a mistake that a lot of bosses or managers have is that they think that the group meetings is kind of making a personal connection. It's not. And you can still make a personal connection online. It's not as easy as far as I'm concerned, but you can do that. But you need to check in with somebody individually and say, hey, how you doing? Do you have any questions? Are there any issues? Is there anything kind of holding you back? A couple of years ago, I think about a year and a half ago, before COVID came out, Gallup did a study on remote workers, and they said that one of the big problems, they said that they did like it when a boss would make a connection with them, and felt that most of the time it was not micromanaging, but just to have that kind of a safety net. But they also found that a big problem that remote workers have is being thrown under the bus whenever anything goes wrong by the people back at corporate. And so if you have a team of 10 people, 6 work out of the office and then 4 are remotely at home or in a share space, then if something goes wrong, they can easily point to somebody who's not there. And in the past, managers have kind of relied a lot on those 2 individuals kind of straightening that out in the hallway professionally.
Yeah.
But now that doesn't happen. And so you need to touch base and check and make sure that everybody's on the right page. And that really does go back to good communication, diversity communication, which is really just a culmination of the first 3. But yet, it's best, I think, if you can have a time to touch base with your remote workers, like Tuesday and Thursday from 1 to 2, I have an online open door. And you can always reach me by email. You can always just give me a call. But those are special times that I've left my schedule open just for my people. So consider that.
Yeah, so setting aside time for that. I think that's a great idea. Absolutely. Wow. I think that's important because, as you said, when you're working in an office space, you can always kind of like wander by your boss's office, stand in the doorway. So what do you think? And, kind of, okay. And then wander back. And, you have that personal. Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. And just being able to say, so, how was your weekend? Oh, yeah, it was great. Super. Oh, and then off you go. Just that moment of connection, I think, is really important. Right. And being, you said, connect, be clear, commitment, all of that has to be communicated. And I love that. And so you clarify all this in your book. Is that right? Yeah.
It's the very last portion of the book. And it's something that I added just maybe about a month ago. I'm glad I did.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because the book has a lot of good stuff in it. A lot of good stuff. So you don't want to just, when you get the book, you don't want to read just the last. Don't go to the end. You got to read the whole thing.
The butler did it, so just start at the beginning. Yeah. And also, Dana, if anybody would like the first chapter of that book for free, I'll give it to you in PDF form. It doesn't hit Amazon until October the 8th, but you'll be able to buy it in book form and as well as for your Kindle. But if you will just email me, Blaine67@gmail.com. That's one of my aliases. And
I will put that up there.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Hang on here. Let me get that up. Blink. There we go. Ta-da.
Yeah, okay. It's the foreword and the first chapter and a little bit about me. The first chapter is called The Ghost in the Machine. What is a manager anyway? And kind of starts you off at square one right there.
Yeah. Well, that's really great. Thank you so much for sharing that with our viewers and, kind of get a taste of who you are, because you've been doing this a long time. You have a lot of knowledge and experience, and you're available to be training businesses and corporations and groups right now, especially more than ever since we're all virtual. And I think that's really great that you are available. We can even catch you on Facebook as well. So this is really good stuff. I want to keep this up here a little bit so people can see it and make sure they can get a hold of you. And we can find you on Facebook, just Blaine Little, but we want to certainly go to your Momentum Seminars page and get a real taste for what you do. And you've been around the block more than once or twice. You're a distinguished Toastmaster too, aren't you?
I am.
So for those Toastmaster friends out there that are watching, so this is one reason why Blaine is so great at what he does, is because Toastmasters has helped him. For those of you who are not Toastmasters, you may want to think about it.
If you're not involved, then you need to get involved. It's not just public speaking, but there's a whole slew of things that you learn. It's a wonderful organization.
Absolutely. And Blaine and I would never have known each other. He lives over in Tennessee and I live over here in Wyoming. So how would we know each other unless it was for that connection with an international group? So yeah, that is certainly one of those things. And you're also a certified national trainer. So you're a busy guy, and this has just been so much fun. So one little thing, you want to throw out one little nugget for us just before we leave? Want to talk about one thing?
Yes, and it may sound a little cliche, so I kind of hate to say I hate cliches, but honestly, when it comes to management, whether you have one person or a team of 100, honestly, be yourself. Be yourself. A consistent mistake I have seen people make is they'll use the previous boss to sort of be the model for what they're going to do. Well, the previous boss might not have been very good, might not have had a very good management style. Or if he or she did have a good management style, then that was hers or his. That's not yours. So you have to bring your own personality into it. Guess what? That involves being vulnerable. And if you ever publicly speak, then you understand the importance of being vulnerable. And it sounds counterintuitive, but if you're going to be a good manager or entrepreneur, you have to make yourself a little bit vulnerable as well.
Absolutely. And you're just because you're a manager or that you are hiring people and now your team is following your directions, that doesn't instantly make us perfect. And so I think I think we still need to be open to feedback and maybe ask for feedback. Is that something that we ought to be doing as well?
Yes, and it kind of reminds me of Ed Koch, who used to be a mayor years ago, used to go around walking on the streets of New York City and saying, "How am I doing? How am I doing? How am I doing?" I'm not saying take that approach, but you do need to be mindful of your blind sides. We all have blind sides, and you got to be cognizant of those. So you got to have people you trust, and ask them, So my wife will be right like that. If I
Really?
or anything, she's going to let me know right away, and I'm like, well, okay, maybe I need to check that.
Right.
So,
right.
It's fine to have a blind side. Just you got to learn what it is and overcome it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think as Toastmasters, and that's another great thing about Toastmasters is I have become, open to evaluations after 27 years plus in Toastmasters. I look for that evaluation. Like, what can I do better? When someone comes up to me and says, I don't really want to hurt your feelings. That really, I'm so happy they do that. I'm so happy because I wouldn't do it on purpose to hurt somebody or to, offend or, or be a poor manager. So having someone tell you that is so beneficial if it's done in a caring, kind way, not a slap up the head sort of thing.
And like I say, it sounds counterintuitive, but a bit of vulnerability makes you approachable to someone else. It really does do a lot to strengthen the team.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
If you express yourself with a certain amount of vulnerability, or at least openness or flexibility, and then you find that people are trying to take advantage of that openness and flexibility, you don't have a management problem. You have a people problem. You need to talk to your HR director.
Yeah.
You need to get a better team.
Let me get me on the phone. Hi, me. Absolutely. Well, that's take it. Blaine, that's really great advice, and I really appreciate it. And just one more time, I want to pop this up on the screen so our viewers can make sure they get a hold of you. And Blaine was so gracious. If you want to email him, you won't throw him on some spammy email list and
No.
harass them for the rest of their lives. You'll just get the first chapter and forward of his upcoming book. So just email Blaine, ask him for that. He'd be so happy to give that to you. And I'm really excited that you offered that, Blaine. Thank you so much for being gracious. And if anybody out there has questions, comments, or wants to talk about what Blaine does for real instead of sitting here chit-chatting with me, be sure and contact him. Check him out on Facebook. Without a doubt, you'll get some great information and insight from him. And if I can be of service to any of you, here's my information, CoachDanaInspires.com. Contact me, let me know how I can serve you. And again, Blaine, this has just been so much fun, and I really appreciate your time. So get back to work, buddy, and we'll talk to you later. And I look forward to seeing everybody next Tuesday on Business Inspiration. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Dana. Bye-bye.